Hey guys, welcome back. So today we're back out at the range to film another episode of What We Enjoy Shooting. This whole episodic thing came about because Jason and I were talking about the guns we enjoy shooting and why, and we don't really dive into that here on the Military Arms channel. Many times we kind of get sucked into the whole format of doing gun reviews, and we don't really talk about what we enjoy about the particular firearm that we're shooting and why we enjoy it. And so that's what the series was born from. Today we're going to talk about clone builds. Clones are guns that look like real guns, but are made from something else, or they're made from scratch to be a clone of something else that was perhaps made by a different company. And clone builds are very interesting. It's very popular today because we're just coming out of 20 years of war. A lot of firearms were used by various combatants in the war, so it's fun for people to clone the guns that either they served with or saw in combat, or people that never served but see them in pictures or in news or whatever, and they want to clone themselves. But then there are other more extreme examples like this XM8 that I have sitting here, but we'll delve into that in this video. So let's get started talking about clone builds and what's so fun about them. A lot of folks ask me, how can I get involved in the firearms business in that particular community? And one of the best ways to do that is to become a gunsmith. Every gunsmith I know is just overbooked with work. It's a very good living. And so if you would like to become a gunsmith, you need to go to a gunsmithing school or become an apprentice for an existing gunsmith. But Modern Gun School is an accredited college that also works with veterans in the GI Bill, where you can go and get a degree from accredited college in gunsmithing and then go out and start your own gunsmithing business, which I think is a really great option. Again, throughout my entire life, gunsmiths have always been able to earn a really good living, assuming they have a really strong work ethic. So please check out Modern Gun School. I do have a link in the video description below. So today we've been blessed with a number of different clone rifles that were built by companies like Brownells or Nodak Spud, and then other clone builds that are more custom work like the XM8 that you see here. Again, the whole 20 years of war really produced a lot of different firearms, and people are even going back and cloning guns from the Cold War, Black Hawk down all the way up to the last 20 years of war in Afghanistan and Iraq. But let's talk about the XM8. The XM8 is a gun that never really truly existed outside of prototypes that were tested by the military to see whether or not they wanted to adopt it to either augment or replace the M16 in U.S. military service. So this gun was really popular in the early 2000s. You'd see it in video games and things like that, but it was never sold on the open market. So the guns that you see in the United States like this one are clones. Now this one happens to be built on a real HK rifle, the SL8. The SL8 had a thumbhole stock on it, a 10-round magazine and things like that. Very featureless rifle. But it was a good basis because the XM8's based on the G36. The G36 was turned into the SL8 for the civilian world. And so it has the right receiver and things like that. So the rest of the parts Tommy made himself. He molded polymer for the front handguard. Even this is soft, pliable rubber. It has a good feel to it. He made this top area, and then he took the existing SL8, took the 10-round magazine thing out of it, put an actual, G36 style magazine well on it that can be swapped out with, so it can use either G36 mags or Stanag magazines. And then he made this stock, and it's even a functional stock, so you can adjust it for length of pull. On top, I have an Insight optic, which would have been correct for some of the guns like this one. And so it's basically a modified G36. That's why you see the charging handle up here. It's very G36-ish. The gas system, all that stuff is straight off the G36. So America came pretty darn close to adopting the G36, which even the Germans are dumping now and going to different rifles. But it's a neat gun. And originally it was part of a broader program that also had, I think it was a 20 or 25 millimeter smart grenade launcher, and this was attached to the bottom of it. They split the two programs apart, and this became the XM8. So it's a lot of fun to be able to shoot this. Now, I don't shoot it a whole lot. It's not that I think it's fragile or anything. It's just if I break something, I can't really readily replace it. Now, Tommy does some really cool stuff, like the original XM8s, or I'm sorry, the SL8s were a gray, and this was an early one, and he dyed it to be black so it matched the proper furniture. But he's also made these in flat dark earth and green and all sorts of stuff, longer barrels, shorter barrels. He can pretty much do anything you want. The downside is they're very expensive, but it is really, really cool to have a functioning rifle that I can go out and shoot and show in video when I talk about, rifles the U.S. military considered adopting. I have some Federal 162 grain, that'd be a feat, a 5.56, some 62 grain ammunition here, and we'll just do a little bit of shooting with this rifle. Now again, it's just a pin pop right here. I pop this pin out and then slide this magwell off. I have the other magwell at the house, and that's the G36 magwell. I prefer using Stanag magazines because I have far more of them. Very, very cool. It's really interesting to be able to shoot a replica like this. That is so much fun. I totally love shooting this rifle. Very, very cool. And you can still get them. Tommy Built is making G36s, which obviously are very close to the XM8, but I believe he'll still make an XM8 for you if you have a rifle you want to convert. So, very, very cool. Let's move on to the next one. The XM8 clone that I just showed you is a really expensive clone build. What they would cost today, I don't know. I've had that for many years. So there are other clones out there that aren't so expensive. And Palmetto State Armory is an outstanding company. They're making all sorts of cool stuff. They just talked about a Mark 12 build they're doing. It looks like they have an M4 with a CAC rail. They posted on Twitter recently. They have a number of different guns they're working on. They have the H&R line, so they're bringing back classic H&R style AR-15s, M16 clones from the Vietnam era. So they're really doing a lot of clone building, and this is another example of that. So some people would say this doesn't look much like an M110. Well, if you're big into CAC and you're a big military guy, yeah, it may not. But to the average Joe, you would look at this at a quick glance and go, wow, that's an M110. And then upon closer inspection, you would go, well, maybe it's not. Maybe it's a clone. So this is the Saber 10, and it is the M110 clone. So they also have talked about, they posted a picture of what looked like an HK 417 clone recently that they're also working on over at PSA. This thing costs $1,400, so it's extremely affordable. If you take a look at the CAC rifle, just a basic SR25 is like $7 grand. If you want to get an actual M110 and the deployment package, you're 30, 40 grand, something ridiculous like that. So if you want to shoot something like an M110, shooting the CAC for most people, myself included, just isn't an option. When I saw this thing, I had to order one because I was really, really excited to be able to go out and shoot something. I enjoy the AR-15, the AR-10, and this thing does not disappoint. This is a sub-minute gun with match ammunition, and it has the look and feel, and for me, this is as close as I need to get, and the optic on top of it literally costs twice as much as the gun itself. So, very cool clone. You'll find them in stock about every 2 weeks or so. They'll put more in stock. They sell out very quickly because a $1,400 M110, yeah, people are going to buy that. This rifle Jason brought out today for today's video, and this is his take, loose take on, say, a Gordon carbine, something from Black Hawk Down, Mogadishu. That rifle that you would see people cloning would have an A1 fixed carrying handle on top. It would have the carbine handguards, a different suppressor, similar in appearance-ish. The flashlight hanging down would be something that would be kind of that era. Blood diamond, stuff like that, right? Now, again, this isn't a perfect clone, but that's what's really cool about clone building. You can get as detailed as you want, or you can deviate a little bit and make it a little bit more to your liking. It has a modern optic on it, A4 upper, things like that, but it still has the overall look. So it's up to the builder what they want to accomplish. They want an absolutely perfect clone that has everything down to the markings, replicated. And there's people that do that. Or do you want something that's just more of a shooter like this rifle that just has the basic look and it spans a number of different genres, if you will. So we got some more 62 grain, 10 rounds of 62 grain Federal. And we do want to thank our friends over at Federal for supplying the ammunition free of charge to the channel. All right, I'm going to charge her up. It is raining outside. I'd love to go outside and do a little shooting, but it's just been raining all day. Now, he has this thing. Jason is a big AR-15 fan, and he just loves working with them. And if you think a Tri-Arc is smooth or something like that, a really high-end AR in terms of recoil impulse, you probably want Jason to tune your rifle because this thing is as smooth as any AR-15 as I've ever fired. It's perfectly gassed with a suppressor on it, and that is a Griffin Armament PS R7, or it might be a 5.56. I don't know. Not my gun. It's so smooth. Wow. Very, very smooth. Jason sure knows how to tune those ARs. Let's take a look at the next one. So we have a bit of a Tommy Built theme going on here because I just absolutely love Tommy Built's work. The man is a creative genius and the stuff that he does is just amazing. So I love his guns and his builds and his cloning work. So this is a UMP. I call it an UMP. It's like AUG, I call AUG. The UMP that you see here with its 16-inch barrel, this is a gun that originally started life as a USC. The USC would be the civilian version, like the SL8 of the G36, right? It had a limited capacity magazine, a completely featureless gun. And this one is now 9mm. It has an HK side folding stock on it. It has a 16-inch barrel, but I could put a short barrel on it if I file a Form 1. I can turn it into an SBR. I've just not done that. Parts on this gun would come from websites like HK Pro. There's various, or HK Parts, I should say, hkparts.net. That's where I would find a lot of the parts to complete builds like this that you need some original HK parts. So he's done his magic on the upper and lower, and then it's augmented with those parts that you can pick up online. Now, the parts can be hard to find at times, and they can be quite expensive, so many people will plan out their builds. Now, there's other companies out there making complete receivers for the ump, like the Gideon or something like that. I don't have one. I just remember them popping up at my feet. I never had an interest in one because I've always had this Tommy build. I have one in 45 and one in 9mm. And I like the Tommy build guns a lot. And so this gun works out really, really well. These are surprisingly light guns. No, I don't have the 40 Smith & Wesson because it just should not exist. But yeah, I'm just kidding. But anyway, I just have the 45 and the 9mm. But it's just such a lightweight little gun. Now, I don't really like this over the MP5, and that's what I wanted to play with when I got my first one, is I wanted to see how I liked it next to the HK MP5 and 9mm, and the MP5 is just a smoother gun. These things are just straight blowback, just have a big bolt slapping around in a polymer receiver, and firing them on full auto, which I have, the sight picture just kind of disappears. It just becomes a blur because the gun's moving around so much, where the MP5 is just silky smooth. So clones will get you close to experiencing the actual gun that, thanks to goofy US laws that are unconstitutional, we can't get the actual gun, hence the clone building. And then we have stupid laws about barrel length and stuff like that we have to deal with for now until we can get those overturned. So it does use standard ump magazines, and hit that HK locking recess. I always do that. And we'll just do a little shooting with this bad boy. What's funny about shooting this after just shooting Jason's AR that he's tuned, this thing has more recoil. It jumps around more. The sight's unsettled far more. So funny. You would think a 9mm would have zero recoil. That's why I just never really cared about the umps, but doesn't mean I don't want the clone build. Keep in mind, folks, we've said this many times on the Military Arms channel, not every gun has to serve a practical or tactical purpose. You're allowed to own firearms that are just fun to shoot. And many times that's exactly what clone builds are. Fun guns to shoot. On the other end of the clone spectrum are rifles that are imported from manufacturers that are very close facsimiles of the actual military rifle. The VHS is a Croatian military bullpup, and it has a number of different configurations, and it's evolved quite a bit over the years, but this is a current generation example of a VHS rifle. And so this one's been Americanized just a little bit, has an American A2 style grip on it that you can swap out, something the original did not have. It has M-LOK handguards on it. So it's been Americanized a little bit, but just recently Springfield brought in the 20-inch barreled version, which this one is, and it has the grenade launching ring on it, the flutes on the barrel, and again, that 20-inch barrel with the bayonet lug on it. And so the first rifles that came in, which I was really excited about, were the 16-inch guns that just had, conventional 16-inch barrels on them. And that was cool. I was really happy, but I wanted the 20-inch barrel, and they also have a 1.5 power optic and a really cool looking carrying handle, if you will, up here that I hope at some point Springfield brings in so we can swap these out and get those 1.5 power optics on them. Very reminiscent of something like a Steyr AUG or a G36 with its optics cluster there. So it's a low power optic, but it looks so sharp. I'll throw a picture up of one. It's just a really, really good looking rifle. So they're almost there with this one. So this is a close facsimile. Now, one thing I'd like to see is somebody bring pistol grips to market, because I can pull this one off. I could put another pistol grip on that has more of the profile of the actual military VHS and stuff like that. So even when you get a rifle like this, it's really close. There's still some work to be done if you're trying to perfect that overall look. And again, maybe somebody will make some of the components that'll finish the look of this particular rifle. I love bullpups, and the VHS is just a really, really cool gun. It's a little bit different than some of the other bullpups out there because this pistol grip is moved forward, so it has a very long reach, if you will. Many other bullpups I've used over the years will have that pistol grip a little bit closer to the shooter's shoulder. This one also has that really long stock option where you can extend that stock out, and even with my large frame, that just feels weird because my firing hand is so far forward, almost feels like it's further forward than it would be on an AR-15 or something like that. It just feels a little off. So running it collapsed is something that I prefer to do. Maybe one click out, but having that ability to adjust that length of pull is really nice. Not many bullpups, actually. I can't think of any other military bullpups that have that option on them. So it's just a cool gun, very friendly to the ambi shooter. You can quickly switch which side the gun ejects out of, has an ambi charging handle like a G36 up here, adjustable gas regulator. Just a cool gun overall. So at some point, Springfield, get us that carrying handle 1.5 power optic. So I hope you enjoyed today's video talking about clone builds and clone rifles. It's one of those things, again, that you don't really have to be all that practical. Now, this rifle's fully practical. This is ready to go. If you want to use this as your go-to rifle, go for it. It's well vetted. It's a good gun. But other guns, like some of the Tommy built stuff I've shown out here, it's not that they're not reliable, they're not durable, it's just that I have so much money wrapped up in them, I don't want to break them. And so you'll see people doing both, building clones to shoot and building clones just to collect. But that's the beauty of what we do in the 2A community, is you can do whatever you want. Not everything has to be practical. All right, folks, if you enjoyed today's video, please consider becoming part of our Patreon family. There's a link in the video description below. Also, right here on YouTube, you got the little join button and the thanks button underneath the video player you're watching right now. Mash either one of those buttons and you can support us in the age of demonetization right here on YouTube. Last but not least, please swing by, check out Copper Custom. Thank you for 15 years of support, and we'll talk to you guys soon.